Hi, welcome to the Tillamook County Pioneers podcast. We are covering local elections, and I'm speaking today with Charles McNeilly. He's going to discuss his platform and why he is running for office, as well as perhaps the weather. We might talk about the weather a little bit. And before I get too much into it, I'll let, do you prefer Charles or Mr. McNeilly or
Charles is fine.
I'll let Charles discuss the reason for all of this. Why are you running for office?
So I'm about 21 months into my first tenure as mayor. I've been very excited and very happy with the progress that has been made in Rockaway Beach. I think we're headed in a great direction. I've built a really strong, productive working relationship with City Manager Shepherd, who I hold in very high regard. He's built an incredible team in the 2 years that I've been, or 21 months that I've been in office. As an example, when I started as mayor, January 2023, City Hall staff comprised of City Manager Shepherd. Becca Harth was the office manager. We had a planning tech, Jenny. We had a billing clerk, Allie, and we had a front office person, Kale. And we had a contract, 1 day a week contract planner. In the 21 months, City Manager Shepherd has totally restructured and enhanced our City Hall staff. We now have a city recorder, which I've come to learn is a really critical role in city government. I like to think she keeps us coloring within the lines, among other many things, including responding to public records requests. And we have a financial director, Marnie Johnston. Our city recorder is Melissa Thompson. We have a full-time planner, Mary Johnson. Kale was promoted to work with the finance director and handle the billing. And we hired a new delightful front office person, Elizabeth. So the quality of our front office staff, our City Hall staff, has gone up. All of the ones who have left have gone on to other jobs that they enjoy, either moved out of the area or went down the road to another city. So it's been a great, I think, transition for everybody, including those who have moved on to new opportunities.
That's
Oh, and then you asked
wonderful.
me why I'm running. So
Yeah.
I really want to continue this trend in the city. I'm very excited about the direction that we're going in. For example, we had the most productive fiscal year in city council history. The city prepared 3 proclamations, 61 resolutions, and 6 ordinances, and the city council passed them. We have never had that level of productivity. So I'm particularly proud of what I thought was a skill I brought to the role, which is managing meetings. Although I don't have a career in government, I have a career in the private sector, and a big part of what I did in my job was just effective meeting management, and I think I've demonstrated that. So we're on a great trajectory, and I just want to continue.
Fantastic. Very clear. So it sounds like you've primed the next few years for the city. What are some goals now that you have your bench built out and you've got some processes in order and you've clarified? I'm assuming the language in the ordinances is what's clarifying and updating. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I'm not sure what you're referencing, Kara. Sorry.
Oh, so you've developed your staff and
Well,
you've
City Manager Shepherd's developed the
yeah,
staff.
I meant you as in the royal you, the city.
Okay. Oh,
This
gotcha.
yeah, yeah. So now you have a deep bench of people who are able to do the work, and you've passed. You mentioned that you passed some ordinances in the you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm assuming some of those ordinances were not necessarily just new ordinances, and maybe it was clarifying existing ordinances.
Yeah, sure. So a couple of the ordinances that passed that I think were very critical. One had to do with um, managing ordinance or complaints from the citizens about individuals who are not maintaining their property. And there's a whole process around that, you notify the city, gets the complaint, the city notifies the property owner has a specified period of time to clean up the mess, whether it's abandoned cars or trash or whatever the complaint is that was found to be viable. If they don't, then the city notifies them that they will go in on the property and clean it up themselves, and then charge the property owner the cost to do that. What we discovered, and again, we in the royal sense of the word, discovered is we didn't have the ability to put in place what's called an administrative warrant, which would give us permission or authority to go on the property, whether the property owner gave us permission or not. So, for example, we were cleaning up a property in town, and the property owner said, "I'm sorry, leave my property." So we had to leave the property. So we passed an ordinance, put in place the authority to get from the court an administrative warrant, and also the authority to invite the sheriffs to join us if we thought it was going to be a potentially dangerous situation for our employees to be on that property. So we basically filled a gap that was a critical gap to address complaints that come in from our residents. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so it sounds like you've really primed the next few years for whether it's
Mhm.
you or somebody else that takes the position. I'm wondering what your, oh, looks like you froze a little bit. Sorry. I was just letting the lag catch up. So I'm wondering what your plan is for the next few years, given how much you have accomplished in your existing term.
Sure. One of the most important projects that the city has taken on is acquiring the Jetty Creek watershed. So, for those on the podcast that don't know, our water, our primary source of water, is surface water that comes off the Jetty Creek watershed. Our water treatment sits at the end of that, and then produces the water that we all drink in the water district, which includes the city as well as some unincorporated areas outside of city limits. Acquiring and controlling that watershed is really critical to the long-term viability of our community, with a combination of timber practices. And this isn't a criticism of timber practices, but what I've learned is practices to monetize timber harvested to sell are very different than practices to make sure you have an abundant, clean supply of water. And so by taking ownership of the watershed, we can put in place a forest stewardship program that will be focused on assuring that we get the maximum amount of water from that watershed. Some research that was shared during the Jetty Creek Advisory Committee says that there is plenty of water available to us from that watershed. So acquiring it is a good next step for the city.
Awesome. So in terms of other planning goals, a lot of candidates, especially for city council, are discussing, and not just in Rockaway, throughout the county, throughout the North Coast, housing.
Mhm.
Is that on your docket?
Yeah, mixed income housing, I think, is really important for our community for a variety of reasons. Whether it's workforce housing, housing for people who aren't making a lot of money, and supporting doctors and nurses and professionals and teachers. Our school district struggles hiring because of uh, 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 the lack of housing for teachers and administrators. So it's very important. And it will be a partnership with developers. What I've learned over the last 21 months is there are developers out there that specialize in this type of housing. They know where to get the grants, they know how to build the housing that will allow them to make a profit while filling an important need in the city. That's one part of this. The other part is Senate Bill 406, which dictated that Tillamook County cities must address and change their zoning to allow for duplexes, triplexes, quads, patio homes in what is typically single family home zoned areas. And so that will also allow us to build more housing. The third thing that we're doing is looking at system development charges as they relate to additional dwelling units, also known as ADUs, which is building a little house in your backyard next door on your same property that can be rented out. And that's another potential source for housing in our city.
Wonderful. I'm glad to see that you are taking some steps. It's definitely needed. So we've kind of we've talked about some of the environmental issues. We've discussed briefly housing. I guess the third leg of what most people are talking about is the economy, and especially bringing businesses into the city or supporting businesses. How are you thinking about that? What is your thought process?
So one of the headwinds that the city runs into in our community is we have a divide in our city and in the business. It plays itself out in the business community, but quite frankly, I've learned it's a historic divide in our community that just tends to be seen in a split between the Chamber of Commerce, the Rockaway Beach Business Association, and then those businesses that don't want to deal with any of those, either of those two groups. I guess you could call them the Switzerland group. So we have three groups of businesses, and so although the city doesn't have any direct way of fixing that, what I plan to do if I'm reelected is invite all of the business owners into a summit to talk about this situation. I intend to bring in a facilitator who specializes in conflict resolution in a commercial space. And I believe that the business owners can solve this problem if you just get them in a room and have them talk to each other. None of them wants this divide. They're not interested. They're here for every business to succeed. So let's get them in a room and have them come up with a plan to solve this situation in our town.
That's very interesting. Not at all the thought that I was starting with, but I love learning something new. I had no idea that there was a conflict between the two business organizations. I was actually thinking more along the lines of generating year-long revenue. So I know that there has been a consistent push to get people into the shoulder season, and tourism has long been the main driver outside of obviously industry. It goes forestry, farming, and then tourism, and you
And
can lump.
we've
Yeah,
always existed for tourism. It's
yeah.
been that's how we started as a town, and that's how we continue as a town. So we have an excellent working relationship with the Tillamook Coast Visitors Association, and so that's part of our discussion with them in terms of promoting tourism. And I'll just back up, and I'm sure you know this. We collect lodging tax. We're required to spend a certain portion of that lodging tax attracting tourists. Our organization that does that for us is the Tillamook Coast Visitors Association under the exceptional leadership of Nan Devlin. And so, for example, in Willamette Week, there was just an article published about what a great place Rockaway Beach is to come in the winter. And so part of it is just getting the word out, particularly in the Portland metropolitan area, that hey, it's not bad to be sitting there looking out at the ocean. Winter oceans are more fun to watch than summer oceans. I think I'd also like to find other activities that we can do. We've got the Writers Rendezvous that's in the shoulder season that tracks people. So we do need to look for other opportunities and events that can be brought into Rockaway Beach. And then last but not least, we have a couple of empty storefronts. I'd love to see somebody come in and put some type of indoor activity. If you've been to Nehalem, they have an incredible pinball arcade. I would love to have a pinball arcade in Rockaway
Franchise
Beach.
opportunity.
There you go.
Yeah.
It would be great for the youth. It'd be great for the adults. It'd be something for people to do when they came in the winter, when they got tired of watching the cool, stormy ocean. They could go play pinball for an hour or two.
Yeah, I think that is great. Having lived in Nehalem for most of my life, I would say the pinball was a bittersweet moment because when it came in, that's basically when I moved, and it's one of my favorite things to do. So,
Well,
pinball is definitely a great choice for indoor activities.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I mean, the other thing about business, I think there are things that the city can do to sponsor educational opportunities. You know, uh, uh, how do you survive and prosper as a business in a seasonal town? Um, how do you staff? And it's interesting. There's a staffing opportunity here on the coast among the developmentally disabled individuals who can work, but our businesses don't know how to hire them, how to evaluate them. And so I hope to put on a seminar for our business owners about this untapped source of workforce who have housing, they're living in our community, and they want to work. So I hope to build some awareness among our business owners about that untapped source. And then I want to ask them, what else would you like us to? What other kinds of seminars would you like us to bring in that would help you prosper as a business in Rockaway Beach?
Wonderful. You mentioned that your main role as mayor, maybe that's not the correct way to say it. You mentioned that you bring to the role as mayor meeting facilitation and making the meetings productive. Are there any areas for improvement? Maybe not necessarily specifically related to meetings, but kind of in that vein of improving productivity that you haven't already addressed.
Well, we currently meet at 4:30 for what's called a workshop. It's an opportunity for the council to discuss uh, uh, upcoming business. So we're looking at a new resolution as an example, and so we'll what I call workshop it. And it might be one workshop, it might be a couple of workshops where we'll review what the staff has written up, and we'll make suggestions for changes, or we have questions about it. So that might take one meeting, it might take a couple of meetings. The challenge right now is that workshop runs from 4:30 to 5:40. It's an hour and 10 minutes because we follow with our 6 p.m. council meeting. Uh, I would love to see us move that workshop to a different night so it could be a little longer and we could do more work. There's been times that we haven't been able to get through the workshop agenda because of the hard stop with the council meeting. So that's one dream of mine. I don't control it. It would be up to the council to make that decision. But I think that could enhance productivity for the council by having a little more time and not having a hard stop for the workshops.
Yeah, that is a good idea. It makes a lot of sense. People get a little
Can
burnt
we
out from
pause? Can we
meetings too.
pause for
Oh
a
yeah,
second?
absolutely. Yes,
Hold
for
on.
sure.
I'll be right back.
For sure.
Thank
That
you.
little middle
Thank
up.
you. Campaign activities I had to go
No,
attend
you're
to.
fine. You're totally fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, so speaking of the council, getting to some of the nitty-gritties, how do you find working with the council? And do you feel that you would be as effective with the same council, a different council, a mix, or do you think it doesn't matter?
As a meeting manager, I'll be effective as effective. Doesn't matter who's on the council. That's a process. We have council rules. We have public meeting laws. We have Robert's Rules of Order, and so all of those structure how those meetings happen. So as the chair, it doesn't matter to me who sits in the council seats. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I suppose, we could dive into some of your policies if you want to talk about anything or elaborate on anything. I know you've had multiple public meetings, so I feel like your platform is pretty well known by anybody who's taken more than 5 minutes to look for it. And also, given that you've been chairing these meetings for your entire tenure, I suppose people could look at the public record if they wanted to see how you actually did your job. Um, but if there's anything you would like to specifically address or leave with the viewers, the audience, maybe somebody's listening, so listeners, feel free to take this last moment to kind of describe that, encapsulate
Sure,
that.
sure. I really have ushered in a new era of transparency and community engagement for our city. Whether it's the coffee with manager and mayor, my annual state of the city messages, the monthly updates I send out. Our community is getting more information delivered to them about what's going on in their city than any other time in history. I have advocated for, and City Manager Shepherd listened. So we now have had more town halls, more open houses, more opportunities again for the residents, the community members, to come in and tell us what they want and what's important to them. And then we've just finished. We're just in the final stages of a strategic initiative planning effort that engaged the community, because we needed to know what we're doing and where we're going and where they want us to take the city. So around October 25th, I around October 25th, the draft strategic plan will be posted on our website, and then there'll be a period of opportunity for the community to respond to that plan. We had almost 700 community members respond to the survey. We had focus groups. I have a background in marketing research, and so I was very impressed with the company we hired. They did a tremendous job in doing, which isn't necessarily an easy type of exercise for a city, but I was very impressed. So that'll continue to be a focus. It was a focus when I ran. I said, that's what I'm going to do. I did it, and I will continue to make sure that we have communication and engagement. The Jetty Creek watershed, again, will continue to be a focus of mine. I was there at the beginning, and I'm going to be, I don't know if I'll be there at the end, because I don't think we'll buy it in the next 2 years, but as a resident, I'll be there when we go over the finish line. Short-term rental management is really important to our community, finding a balance between tourism and tourist housing and our communities, and maintaining livability in our residential neighborhoods. We will look at that again next year. So I'm looking forward to discussing where we're at with our ordinance, where we're at with our cap. So that'll be very important. We've talked about mixed income housing. And then I haven't talked a lot about this, but I'm hearing it from as I've gone around and knocked on doors and chatted with voters. Public safety and policing. Is it the right thing for our community to continue our relationship with the Tillamook County Sheriff's Department, or should we start thinking about bringing reforming a local police department for Rockaway Beach? So that's something I'll be looking at closely over the next few months.
Yeah, I remember seeing a station downtown, and I didn't realize that that was no longer active. When did you lose your station, or how does that work?
Well, so all of us in Rockaway Beach woke up one morning and the police department was gone. And one of the reasons I ran, and there's some very there. Let me just say, one of the reasons I ran is that was an example of the lack of engagement between city government and the community. We shouldn't have woke up on a Monday morning and found our police department gone. If there was issues that needed to be addressed, they should have brought us into the discussion, because if it was budgetary, we might have been willing to accept a levy, for example, or a public service fee to help fund the police department. Again, public engagement, community engagement, listening,
I mean, I'm
talking.
so sorry. I'm so sorry to be laughing at this, but that is pretty funny that somebody just decided, well, we're gonna just not have it.
Well,
That
it's not
seems
that, it
like
wasn't that simple. It imploded. The police department imploded. The police chief left to go someplace else. And some of it was over funding. Some of it was over not the best of relationships. But we reached the point as a city where the police department, I don't want to leave people thinking that the government kicked the police department out. They did not. It imploded, and they needed to go find another avenue for public safety. And we've had a good relationship with the sheriff's department. We have two patrol deputies who live in town that patrol our streets. We're getting close to getting a third, and eventually we'll have a fourth. So the contract is for four deputies, but it isn't easy to hire police officers. For example, our third deputy that we were going to get passed all the preliminary tests, all the psych evaluations, the background check. He was smart enough. He was physically able enough. He passed the academy, and he failed field training. So if you imagine you're
I know this
nine,
is not about your campaign, but I'm so curious. How does one fail field training?
you just I'm not an expert in that, so
Right.
I get the question, and
Right.
but I
That's
will,
I've never heard
but
of
what
anything
I
like
will
that.
say
They're
is
perfect,
I'm
except they
glad
couldn't do it.
I'm glad they let him go if he didn't pass what they consider their field training qualifications. But again, it's just a way of saying it's not easy to hire police officers. It takes a long time, and then at the very end of the process, they might fail out.
That's gotta be a very expensive and time-consuming endeavor.
It
And
is.
it makes sense given the importance of the role. These are people who are tasked with saving your life, but also making executive decisions about your life, given that they carry armed weapons, more than one. So you do want them to pass some basic qualifications. That is important.
I wouldn't
Um,
want it. Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted them to pass them just to pass them.
yes, for sure.
I'm very happy that Under Sheriff Kelly made the decision that this individual just wasn't passing muster for this role, and so we're going to have to let him go.
So, given that the community is asking for, and this again might be a little off topic given, but maybe if people are thinking about it and talking about it, it might be something they would find valuable. Um, if the sheriff's department, you have a contract for deputies to patrol, some
Hmm.
of those deputies live in town and they are adequately patrolling, but there's still comment that you might want to have additional public safety officers that are hired by the city. Has there been any clarification as to why the sheriff's department is falling short? Is it that there's just not enough of them? Is it the types of calls they can go on to? It seems like there's maybe a bit of a disconnect if you've got, um, you have coverage. So what are they not doing that is maybe making people rethink, like maybe this should be a city thing?
That's a really good question, and I honestly, as much as I've thought about it, well, it's been suggested to me. This isn't that maybe some people don't really understand or are aware that we have a relationship with the sheriff's department. So one of the ways to address that, if that in fact is just an information gap, when the third officer is assigned, we're going to have a reception, and we're going to invite all the community members to come and meet the new officer, meet the other two officers. I'm going to invite Sheriff Josh Brown and Under Sheriff Matt Kelly to come, and we'll provide some delicious food and an opportunity to interact with our sheriff's department, and with the goal of humanizing them and communicating to the community the public safety situation, what we're doing for public safety in Rockaway Beach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We only have a few more minutes here, so I won't leave this on a question, although I really do want to ask a question, so I'll ask you after. after the recording, but I'll leave a reminder to myself to not just let you go. But if there's anything else that you would like to leave the voters with, please feel free. Remind them who you are, what's your position. The position, I think we all know by now, but some people might not know, so just assume that they don't know
Sure.
anything. Remind them of the position. Obviously, you're in Rockaway, but all those little reminders help people. So they're like, oh, yes, I do need to go vote for that.
So, Charles McNeilly, I'm mayor of Rockaway Beach, and I'm running for reelection. But my reelection is not the end and be all. It's only beginning. We need a council who understands and delivers collaboration and transparency. We need a council who appreciates and works well with our city leadership. So we need Mary McGinnis, Tom Martine, Kylie Conruff, Alicia Franklin, and Penny Cheek. These people have demonstrated proven leadership, a commitment to transparency, a focus on the key issues confronting our city. I hope that you will vote for me, and I hope you will vote for those 5 individuals. They truly appreciate and understand the great job that our city leadership is doing, and will continue to work collaboratively with them.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been the Tillamook County Pioneer Podcast. Get to know your local candidate. We've been speaking with Charles McNeilly, Mayor of Rockaway Beach, who's running for re-election. You will be able to find this on the Pioneers website if you haven't already, since usually if you're getting this, sometimes you find it there. Sometimes it's because somebody sent it to you, but check out the Pioneers website at Tillamook Pioneer, and that's a .net. So that's a funny one. Don't go to .com or .org. It's .net. And we are happy to have you, Charles. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very